Hey everyone, welcome back. Hope you're doing all right. Today, we're getting into the last module of the class, Module 9, Short-Interval Planning, or just SIP for short. The primary learning objective of this module is to explain the short-interval planning process. All right, what is short-interval planning, or SIP for short? Well, SIP is a milestone-based approach focused on precise short-term planning to supplement high-level master schedules. It's all about breaking the work of a key phase down into small, manageable chunks, usually covering the next 1 to 3 weeks. Instead of looking at the entire project schedule like you would with critical path-driven methods, SIP zooms in on what's right in front of us. It helps the team focus on near-term goals and hit key milestones without getting overwhelmed by the big picture. One of the big advantages of SIP is how well it helps teams adapt to real-time project conditions. You know how it is. Construction doesn't always go according to plan due to weather, site conditions, or late deliveries. SIP gives us a way to adjust and fix problems quickly. It's a bit like the last planner system in that sense, as both aim to make the plan more realistic by staying close to the actual work happening on site. A key part of SIP is getting frequent input from the people doing the work. Your foremen, superintendents, field crews, and subcontractors. They know what's really happening on the ground, so bringing them into the planning process helps avoid surprises later. Bottom line, SIP helps the team stay aligned on what needs to get done now, not just what's in the master schedule. It doesn't replace the critical path, it complements it. The schedules with critical paths gives you the high-level plan. SIP keeps the day-to-day work on track and responsive to real-world conditions. All right, let's think about this SIP process like a pyramid built on top of the master plan, which serves as the foundation. This is the big picture plan created early on, usually before construction starts. It's where we lay out the major milestones like design completion, permit approvals, and the big phases of work like site prep, structure, and finishes. This schedule gives us the overall roadmap and deadlines everyone agrees on. On top of that, at the base layer of the SIP pyramid is pull planning. This breaks down those big phases into workable chunks, coordinating the trades and making sure everyone knows when their work happens and how it fits with others. It's about sequencing and handoffs, like making sure electrical is done before drywall, and leaving buffer time to keep things on track. The next layer up is the look-ahead schedule. This zooms in on what's coming up in the next few weeks. Here we get into the details, assigning specific tasks like installing HVAC ducts in a certain zone, figuring out who's doing what, and making sure materials and equipment are lined up. It's also where we identify risks, like bad weather or permits, so we can plan around them. Finally, at the top of the pyramid is the daily plan. This is the day-to-day breakdown of exactly what's going on at the job site, what the crews are doing, what safety checks are needed, and the immediate tasks to keep work moving smoothly. This layer makes sure that what was planned actually happens each day. So, the whole pyramid works together from the big picture master plan all the way up to the daily tasks. This can help us stay organized and on schedule. This illustrates the connection between different types of schedules. The master plan shows the key phases and major milestones. Well before each key milestone, a pull planning session is organized to develop a sequence of tasks from now until that milestone. If time is tight, decisions about stacking activities in parallel or accelerating work are made at this stage when creating each pull planning schedule. Once the pull schedule is in place, we take a specific snapshot of it to develop a more actionable plan for the upcoming week or two. This happens during the weekly meeting. Finally, daily meetings are used to create a daily plan for each crew by taking a one-day window of the look-ahead schedule. All right, now let's get into the details of each SIP technique. First up, pull planning. Basically, pull planning is a way to make a coordinated plan for one part of the project before hitting a key milestone. A group of last planners, the folks who will actually be supervising the work, take bigger chunks or sequences of work and use pull planning to figure out how the tasks hand off to each other. It's a team effort with the people who really know the work and will be managing it day to day. We call them last planners because they're the ones who keep an eye on the work, make changes if needed, and make sure things get done right. The main focus here is to plan the work for the short term, usually about 4 to 6 weeks out. Planning for this time frame helps the team stay focused on what's coming soon with a high degree of certainty, rather than getting lost in long-range details where conditions might change. Instead of looking forward, pull planning sessions actually plan backwards from a key milestone back to today. This way, we make sure every step clearly leads up to that milestone. Each crew tells us what they need to be ready for the work to start. Therefore, the involvement of last planners, including superintendents of on-site teams and subcontractors, is super important, as they can provide their input and insight into current job conditions. The main purpose of pull planning is to define how different trades hand off work to each other and to make sure the sequencing makes sense. It's all about coordination, so no one is waiting around or pushing unfinished work downstream. During these sessions, Teams often use simple tools like sticky notes, pull plan boards, or collaborative maps. These tools are simple but extremely practical and intuitive, helping everyone quickly visualize the workflow and keep track of who's doing what. The bottom line, don't push tasks on others. Instead, let the needs of the downstream crews pull the work forward. The setup for each pull planning session is actually pretty simple. You'll need a large whiteboard to lay out the project timeline. This timeline could be broken down by days, weeks, or even months, depending on the scope of the work you're planning. For tasks, you'll use color-coded sticky notes. Each trade should have its own color. So, for example, electrical might be blue, plumbing might be green, and so on. This makes it easy to visually sort who's responsible for what at a glance, especially when the board starts filling up. Each sticky note should also be organized with specific pieces of information. Typically, it includes the trade type, the company name, a brief description of the activity, any known constraints, and the expected duration of that task. This is an example of a sticky note used during a pull planning session. It should clearly specify the key details related to the task. For instance, this one includes the name of the supervisor, the company, the meeting date, and any notes about constraints or special considerations for the activity. To develop a pull plan, we always start with the milestone we're working toward. For example, let's say the milestone is completing the slab on grade for a specific zone. First, we look at the time available from today until that milestone. Then, each participant, usually foreman or trade leads, adds their sticky notes on the board, but we do this in reverse order, from right to left. So instead of pushing tasks forward, we're pulling them backward from the goal. Suppose the last activity before the milestone is placing the concrete for the slab on grade. That might take one day. Next, we ask, what needs to happen before the concrete can be poured? In this case, it's the rebar inspection. So we add that as the preceding task. From there, we keep going backward. What has to happen before the rebar inspection? Maybe it's the rebar installation itself. Each time we add a sticky note with the task, who's responsible, the expected duration, and any notes about constraints. You keep repeating this process until you've identified all the critical activities leading up to the milestone. Once everything's posted, the next step is to make sure it all fits within the available time frame. That means checking the total duration and seeing whether the plan is realistic and doable. If the timeline's too tight, you might need to think about accelerating the work, maybe by overlapping some tasks, planning for overtime, or adding more crews. This process can take a bit of time, and it may involve adjusting task durations or resequencing some work. But that's the value of pull planning. It helps you build a coordinated and realistic plan before you start executing. Once the pull schedule is in place, the next step is to build a look-ahead schedule, typically covering the next 1 or 2 weeks. This step is critical for turning the broader plan into detailed day-to-day actions on site. These look-ahead schedules are usually developed on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, often during planning meetings at the end or start of the week. The goal is to keep the team focused and proactively address any potential issues before they turn into delays. The main purpose is to break the pull plan down into specific, actionable tasks that crews can actually perform on site. For instance, instead of just saying install HVAC, a look-ahead schedule might say set rooftop units on Tuesday, run ductwork in Zone A on Thursday, with clear responsibilities and durations listed. Another important part of this process is checking for constraints. This means verifying that everything needed for a task is in place before work begins. For example, do we have the permits? Are the materials on site or arriving in time? Is the crew available and not double booked? Catching these things early helps avoid surprises and keeps the project moving smoothly. This isn't something the general contractor handles alone. Subcontractor involvement is essential. Their input ensures the schedule reflects what's actually happening in the field, not just what looks good on paper. By the end of the session, the team should walk away with a clear and realistic plan for the next 1 or 2 weeks, something that everyone understands, agrees to, and is ready to execute. Here's a sample of a typical look-ahead schedule. Most of the time, these are developed on a weekly basis, but you'll also see 2 or 3 week short interval plans depending on the project's needs. As you can see, the focus is only on the upcoming 2 weeks. We're not trying to cover the entire project here, just the immediate work ahead. What makes a look-ahead schedule different is the level of detail. You'll find start and end dates for each task, the names of the people responsible, and specific notes, like a reminder to order concrete 3 days before the pour. You can even include informal comments like piping work to be verified over the phone. These types of practical details help avoid delays on site. This kind of info doesn't usually show up in high-level project schedules, like bar charts or PDM schedules, because those are meant for big-picture planning. The look ahead is where we zoom in and make sure we're ready to go in the short term. Finally, we hold daily huddles to further break down and coordinate the look-ahead schedule. Each daily huddle is a short meeting, about 10 to 15 minutes, held at the start of each shift. It's not meant to be a long discussion, just a quick check-in to get everyone on the same page before work begins. The crew leads and field managers are the key participants here. This isn't a full team meeting. It's for the people who are coordinating the day's work on site. The goal is simply to go over what's happening today. You need to make sure crews are in the right locations and not stacked on top of each other. You talk through any immediate issues, whether that's missing materials, access problems, or anything else that could slow things down. The real benefit of this is agility. By catching small problems early, you can deal with them before they turn into major delays. It keeps the job site running smoother and helps avoid surprises later in the day. This example shows a daily schedule that outlines the tasks planned for today and tomorrow. You can organize these schedules using separate spreadsheets for different types of work or different crews. For instance, you might have one table specifically for the concrete crew and a separate one for subcontractor tasks. This helps keep things clear and makes it easier to track progress and responsibilities across the site. You can also build daily plans based on specific needs like materials or equipment usage. In some cases, equipment planning can go down to an hour-by-hour schedule. That way, we know exactly when during the day each piece of equipment is needed and by which crew. This helps prevent conflicts, like two teams trying to use the same crane at the same time. Another way to organize the daily schedule is through daily crew planning, showing which workers are doing what and when during the day they'll be working. The idea is to be as clear and detailed as needed so the crews know exactly what's expected. At the end of the day, there's really no fixed format for short interval schedules. Use whatever level of detail helps you get the job done efficiently and avoid surprises on site. Alright, that wraps up this video on short interval planning. We covered the overall SIP process and walked through the key techniques, pull planning, look-ahead scheduling, and daily planning, and how they all connect to keep a project on track. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.